what we're doing is we are going to be drawing from real life. That's the ball that's up there on the counter. So we're going to start out by just drawing the ball and the shadow and the surface that the ball is sitting on. Okay, and then we will do another one of these to where we'll add stuff to it after the fact. Okay, but what we're doing is we're trying to train our eye to make it to where we actually draw what we see and not what we think we see. Because everybody knows how to draw a basketball. You draw a circle. Not everybody really knows how to shade it. And how you shade it is going to depend on where you're sitting. If you're on the left side of the room at table 7, 8, 9, obviously it's going to be a little bit brighter because the light is on that side of the room. If you're on tables 1, 2, 3, you're going to have a little bit more shadow because you're looking more at the back of the ball. And then if you're over at table 4, you see a lot of shadow, but you actually see a little bit of light that's being reflected off of the mat board that's behind it. When you can see that from here too, you've got a little bit of light on the very bottom of the ball that's being reflected up from the mat board that it's sitting on. So we're going to do two things. For starters, and this is something that we're going to use throughout this project, and then we're going to hold on to it and use it later when we do our portraits. But we're going to do a value scale. Okay, and in that value scale, like this, we want to show a range of values from all the way dark, which this one isn't quite all the way dark, to all the way light. All right, and we're going to do it on these little sheets of paper here just because I've got a lot of them right now. But we're going to go from having your pencil, and we want to do it kind of down the side, so we want to be able to hold this up and gauge where we're at. So we're going to go from all the way dark at the top, and then we want to gradually get lighter to where as we get down towards the very, very bottom of it, you have almost nothing. And you can see there's an eraser shaving underneath there, and that's going to cause issues. So make sure the table is clean before you start. You can even see I'm picking up a little bit of the texture of the table. So you might want to put a piece of paper or something down so that way you don't pick up that wood grain. Okay. Now, ideally, we're doing this with a wooden pencil. Okay. And we can come all the way out here to get to very, very light. With the mechanical pencil, generally the lead is a little bit softer. Even though it's a number 2, it's a 2S. So you can start, you can get really dark like this, but then, and I've drawn with mechanicals before, and it can be tricky to come out here to get this real light value because the lead is very soft. Now you see how I'm holding the pencil all the way out here at the end? It's because I can't put as much pressure physically on it. Or if you have a tendency to draw like this, more straight up and down, that's going to be hard to draw light lines. So come out here to the end where you can hold on to the end of it like this, and I'm just barely dragging it across the surface of the paper. So you see how you can get it light, but it's very tricky to do. All right. Thank you. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a piece of paper like this that's up there on the table, and we're going to, for starters, you don't necessarily have to draw from where you're sitting because it might not be the best view, or you might have somebody's head in the way. Sit around the edges of the tables where you can get a straight line of sight to it, because you don't want to have it to your back and have to be turning around all the time, turning around. You want to be able to just look at your drawing, look up, look at the ball, or in this case, Emily. Yes. So for starters, what we're going to do is we're going to start out with the shape of the ball, and we're going to draw a circle. No, you can't use a compass. Okay. I know, right? So what you're going to do, and the way that I've always taught people to draw a circle, which works, is we're going to get our hand going in a circular motion and kind of figure where you want it to be on the page. I'm going to have a shadow that comes out to the right, so I'm going to put my ball over to the left side of the page. You know, if you're sitting someplace else, you might have to do it on the right-hand side of the page, or if you're sitting, straight at it, you could do it vertical because your shadow is going to come straight at you. So it just depends on where you're at.
You can make your hand a compass. Can you do that?
You don't need to. So when you get your hand going, kind of in a circular motion, and then slowly just put the pencil down. Now it's not going to be perfect, and that's fine. You can say this is pretty good, this is pretty good. I got a little bit of an egg shape over here. So I'm just going to come in with my pencil, kind of fix that up. And you want to do this lightly, because ultimately we're going to go through and shade stuff. So you don't want it to be real heavy to start right off the bat. So there's my ball. I'm going to look at it. I've got a little bit of a shadow pops out here, a little bit of a shadow comes out here, and then it's going to extend out like this. Now, one of the things about making this look right, I'm going to take my pencil and put it at the edge of the ball, and then put my thumb at the other edge, and we compare the length of the shadow to the width of the ball. So that is a little bit wider than the ball. So I'm going to look at this. So that's how wide my ball is. So it's going to come out a little bit wider than that. So my shadow is going to come all the way out to here. When we're dealing with actual objects, we have proportions that we have to think about, because there is a definite size relation from one object to the next. Now, granted, we only have one object up there right now, but soon we're going to have two objects, and then we'll have a whole still life to deal with. So we want to have all that stuff taken into consideration before we start to place things on the page. Now, I've got the mat board comes out from behind it here, and then that runs across kind of in a straight line, and then it comes straight at me, a little bit of a diagonal here, and then it comes pretty much off the page, runs like that, and then the bottom of the mat board is going to be just below this. So that's going to run straight across and be parallel to that top line, and I'll finish that out after the fact. Now, we're not worried about the lines on the basketball, we're just worried about the values on the basketball. So don't worry about the lines, don't worry about the dimples. So from here, if we think of the ball as a clock face, at about 1, 2 o'clock is where my shadow starts, and then it kind of comes down and it ends somewhere out here because I have light down at the bottom. So it comes down here and it's got a little bit of an arc going up. So we're going to very lightly get that in there, and then it comes up like this and out and back around like this. Okay, so what we want to do is you don't want to start with your darkest values first, because your darkest value technically is the shadow that's down on the mat board or at the very, very bottom of the ball. So we want to just kind of start to shade and get our middle value in, and then kind of work our way lighter, because you can always make the shadow darker, but depending on how hard you press, you might not be able to make the shadow lighter. And if you were in class last semester, or last year rather, remember when we shaded the spheres. We don't want to shade a ball with straight lines, because if we have a ball and we say, alright, this is dark here, and then this is kind of light here, and then we've got dark shadow here. Does that look round at all? No, because you're using flat lines to shade something that's round. So you want to use lines that are curved to kind of go in that direction. Alright, and it's just a matter of getting darker where you see them and work your way through. Alright, now when you're looking at these, ideally it's best to look at your object more than your actual drawing. So what I was taught in high school, that's what we talked about when I was in college. So I'm telling you nice now, so that way you get a head start. Because if you don't know what it is that you're looking at, you don't know how to draw it. Notice I'm holding the pencil out here. I'm using a little bit wider part of the tip, and I can control my pressure a little bit easier that way. Just kind of work your way through. All right, there's a reflected shadow that comes up. You got a cap, more of a shadow on the back. It's not just all black on the back side of the ball because that's where the light isn't. Okay, you would think that you have a ball, you have a light coming down that's going to hit the front side, and it's not going to be on the back. And you can see that that's not the case, because you have light reflecting up from the board that it's sitting on. So that's where that little highlight runs in through the middle. Okay, and just kind of work your way through, get all of your shading done. Okay, and we don't want to have an outline. Do you see an outline up there when you look at the ball? No, there is no outline. So your shading, when it comes up to the very top of it, you want it to just kind of stop where the edge of the ball is, because that shading is what's going to create your edge. So when we do our big still lifes and things like that, we're relying on the values to create our edges. So we don't want to see any outlines. Okay. And then that's why we go in with a dark shadow like this in the background to show where if you've got a lot of light source here or a lot of highlight, then you need to have something there. So that's why we put the dark background in there, to kind of emphasize where the ball is. Okay. So once you've got your ball all shaded, which this isn't, so I'm going to skip ahead, come down here, you're going to shade your shadow that comes out here, and you might think that it's just all one dark value, but it's not. As it comes out, it kind of fades once you get out towards the very edge of it. So it's going to be darkest right near the ball, but then as it comes out, it's going to lighten up a little bit. Alright, and then there's also some shadows on the mat board, because the lightest area, or the only area on your entire drawing that should be just the white of the paper, is where the light is hitting it directly. So it's your highlight. Everything else is going to have a value. It might be somewhere down here where it's really, really light. Like if we split this up into 6, it might be a half or a 1, but it's going to be there's going to be something there. Okay, and then just kind of work your way through, get all your shading done, and that's a wrap. All right.